What's up, y'all? I'm late. I'm late. Am I in here? Can you see me? Okay. This thing was struggle bus. Okay, let's get this together. Come on in. Mm-hmm. This lip gloss crack. Right. Right. Let's get this posted up here, y'all. One time. What up? Say what's up. Don't be shy. Hold on, let me go over there. I ain't seen nothing. You ain't seen nothing. Okay? You ain't seen nothing. So let me post this up, y'all. I'm gonna wait for y'all to come in, get your book, get your notebook ready. Okay? Same old thing, except with a remix. I got a remix. I hope you're ready for the remix. I hope you're ready. Okay, I'm just gonna post whatever because I don't care about all that. I'm just glad you're in the room. Okay, and when you come in, hit that like. When you come in, hit the motherfucking like one time. Okay, say hi to the girl. It's Real Talk and Healthy Reading Sessions. It's your girl from Real Talk and Healthy Food. Okay, so where are we gonna start? So first, I'm gonna start here with this back to eating. What I've been reading today. Back to eating. What I've been reading. So yeah, this is the remix I was talking about, right? So what day is this? This is day 4, kicking in the dough. It's Thursday, right? Yeah, day 4. Hey, yeah, it's day 4. We've been doing the elimination diet. Those are the Care Bears who's doing the elimination diet. So I've been looking in the book, looking for the parts that wasn't in the elimination diet. And so I wanted to run through the list of alkaline foods for you. And it was something that I wanted to read to y'all, okay? Hold on, where is it at? So this is the Back to Eden book by Jethro Cloth, okay? And you know it's gonna be some recipes coming up out of here. I will already I will already got a recipe for some dressing already that I made up today, but it's really the remix of what we already got on the channel, what we already did together. Okay, so let me just find that page real quick. Okay, no, this is the garlic one. Okay, I'm really close to it, y'all. I'm almost there, and then while we there, hit the like. Come on in. We're gonna wait for more Care Bears. Okay. So for this one, this is what I'm going to put on my list, okay? And it's really simple. I don't know if I should just hold the picture up or read it off. Okay, I'll read it off. So all berries, grapefruit, pineapple, peaches, apricots, cherries, bananas, oranges, apples, lemons, grapes, melons, pears, plums, dates, figs, and limes. The vegetables. I don't know if that was too quick, but run it back, okay? Asparagus, beets, beet tops, celery, cabbage, cauliflower, carrots, cucumbers, turnips, tomatoes, dandelions, Irish potatoes, kale, lettuce, onions, okra. Who eats that unless it's fried? Parsley, greens of all kinds, watercress, parsnip, pumpkin, ruta, rutabagas. Oh, I remember those. Sweet potato, squash, Swiss chard, and all sprouts, spinach, and beans. So with that, I'm gonna have a video for the lettuce wraps or in earlier wraps and the garlic dressing. Okay, so just stepping into the status of the elimination night because we check in there, then we get into the book. Okay, so it's all good. I'm seeing results already. Okay, so that's great. But the reality is, I am struggle bus. So if you didn't watch the meal prep, we did pineapples and blueberries for breakfast, um, roasted squash and zucchini and green beans for lunch, and then a huge salad for dinner. So you want to eat in 6 hour intervals so you could ensure that it's digesting. And so I'm going to come on this weekend with a lettuce wrap idea where it's sticking to it. But listen, I need that action. Okay. We already in this house. We already going through enough. So your girl needs some kind of action. So I'm thinking, some kind of berries for breakfast, lettuce wraps for lunch, okay? The garlic dressing, because it's going to be made out of all veggies. So I've been trying to think of ways of making it, which I'm going to use garlic and cauliflower because I was like, oh yeah, I used to make the dressing with cauliflower. So we're going to bring that recipe back. And if you want to get a head start in your own time, you could go in my Rolodex of recipes, which I should make playlists, but you should go in my recipes. It's one of the old ones where I use the cauliflower to make the ranch dressing. That's the one where I use the ranch dressing. So I'm pretty much going to do the same thing using garlic, onions, and cauliflower. I'm going to show you how I put it together because it ain't going to be nothing. And then that way, we're still sticking to the same thing, except it's been altered and we tricking our minds. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still going to do I'll probably do the salad during the day. Well, either way, a big ass salad is going to be consumed. So that's that day four. Okay, even though I cheated a little. Now, this is the thing. If you're going through your day, right, and say you started at 6, your lunch is 12, and your dinner is 6, right? What you can do, if it gets too harsh for you, then you can get some unsalted peanuts or salted peanuts or some pistachios since they're lower in calories. I would go with the pistachios one time because you can eat a whole bag. It's 150 calories. Boom, boom, and you straight. And then the hand movements of eating it will help you too. Well, it helps me. So I just wanted to go in there and run those vegetables down one time. You guys should really get this book because we're going to be incorporating this in my herb book that I'm going to get a herb book this weekend. So I'll be incorporating that in the up and coming recipes. Because we eat pretty good over here, but we gotta clean it up a bit and get this weight off. It was too much pasta shell. You feel me? So I hope you got your books. If you was here yesterday, them vocabulary words get real gully. So you best to get ready. Because we gonna be looking some shit up. Let me get my phone over here. I posted it on the gram. I don't know how it turned out. My other job. Anyway, enough of work. Damn, we're gonna get that ready. Then we're gonna put the back to eating over here. So as always, we read in one chapter. We're gonna discuss the vocabulary as we go. I feel like it's more natural that way. Then we're gonna discuss how it relates to modern times, how to be proactive in voicing it, and productive in health decisions. Okay, being productive in our own health decisions. Okay, and then also keep in mind that we are going to have movie time or movie night on Saturday. We're reviewing American Skin, starring Nate Parker, Amari Hardwick, Ghost. If you watched Power, or if you still do after they kill Ghost, I was done. But it's starring them too. If you go to my previous live, then you'll see the link in the description, and I'm gonna leave the link on every description up until then. And I think I need to post it on the gram as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then If you don't know how I get down, maybe you should watch some of my old lives and then you see how I do it. Sometimes I get bored, I'm not gonna lie, because it's different. I wish we could like kick back with the movie. So I'm gonna try to figure out how to do that without getting copyrighted. Okay. Until then, we gotta do what we do. And it's usually blow by blow. I'm going, scene by scene and explaining what you see while showing you some clips and digesting some of the meanings behind some of the things that we're seeing. I'm just going to say this about American Skin. I don't know. I know it's coming from a good place. Almost, I low key feel like something may emerge from that, but that's just my spidey senses, and they are always tingling. Okay, so let's get into the first chapter one time. Get your notebook ready, boo. It's not on deck. Let me just show you it's serious. Okay, and then we gonna write them down this time if I'm not too lazy. Okay, so here we go. Oh wait, one more thing. One more thing. It's just me and the robot, so ain't nobody tripping. Let's see. I just want to post this one more time. One more again. Okay, and then well, I gotta wait a little second, so y'all gotta wait a little second. But we on chapter one, which is on page. What page is this? 27. It's called Southern Discomfort: Medical Exploitation on the Plantation. Ooh, y'all, it's gonna get real tonight. Are y'all ready? Y'all ready for the extra trill action? Oh, while that's posting, just know I'm gonna pause to post it on the Instagram, which I will be deleting soon. I don't know if it's specifically this weekend, but it will be soon. So look out for the new gram. And yeah, so I didn't know it takes that long, so let's keep it moving. Get my lashes out the way. Right. So they got a quote here. Celia's child, about 4 months old, died last Saturday on her. The wrath. This is two Negroes and three horses I have lost this year. Hmm. Frederick Gardner, a paraplegic Mormon physician, left among his travel memoirs and an impression of a 19th century slave markets of Washington, D.C. There are a great number of Negroes, nearly all of whom are slaves, and on different streets are large halls occupied by marts or stores for the sale or purchase of slaves. While I have been looking at one of those places on Gravier Street, two gentlemen have arrived, one of whom I have seen in the saloon. He is a young planter and come to purchase a girl to take care of his children or whatever duties he may think proper to impose upon her. The other person is a doctor whom he has brought with him for the purpose of examining her. They pass along the front of the row in the company with the agent or salesman. As they move forward, one is called upon to stand up. The then another while a passive examination is made. Then finally he discovers a bright mulatto who appears about 16 years of age and is quite good looking. She is ushered into a private room where she is stripped to a new condition and a careful examination is made of all parts of the body by the doctor and is pronounced by him to be sound. The money is then paid and she is transferred to her new owner. I've heard that the masters beat and scourge them most cruelly, but I have not seen anything of this kind, nor do I believe that it occurs often. For the Southern people as a class are noble-minded, kind-hearted people and can be found in any county or country and moreover, it would be against their own interest to brutally treat their slave, as no planter desired to have a sick Negroes on his hands. According to my judgment, so far as my experience extends, I believe the Negroes as a class are far more humanely treated and taken care of than our laboring classes in European countries. No, he didn't say that stupid shit. Hold on, let me post this shit. Did he just say that shit? Girl. Okay. I'm gonna post it. Okay. Enslavement could not have existed and certainly could have not persisted without medical science. However, physicians were also dependent upon slavery both for economic security and for the enslaved clinical material that fed the American medical research and medical training that bolstered physicians' professional advancement. I'm sorry, y'all. I might gotta pop these out. Sorry, I keep pausing, but it's for the cause. Hold on, y'all, because I'm gonna need y'all to pull up. You feel me? Just one time. Give me one time. Here we go. We good to go now. All right, y'all. Now we ready. Cool. So I think this might be boring to some people, but it ain't to me. So I've been trying to get through this book, and it's been a struggle and a half. So I appreciate the robot, the one robot keeping me covered. Okay, okay. Garner's vignette suggests that integral role of medicine in enslavement and repeats a key belief that slave owners and physicians share an interest in preserving the slave's health, as no planter desired to have a sick Negro on his hands. Uh, But although medicine was essential to enslavement, the apparent solicitude for the health of slaves was not all it seemed. Rather, the medical interests of the slave were often diametrically opposed to the interests of his owner and of American physicians. From the first, antagonism reigned between African Americans and their physicians. Between the 17th century advent of African settlers to North America and the end of the 19th century, the slave and the physician shared a recognizably primitive medical world. The germ theory that no, the germ theory that revealed the microbial nature of much disease and led to the first grand wave of disease cures was still well in the future. The existence of pathogens such as bacteria, viruses, and fungi was unsuspected. Almost no effective treatments existed for prevalent diseases until the 18th century. Until the last 1830s, the lack of effective anesthesia made the few common surgical procedures horribly painful and all others impossible. I can imagine you don't get put down or nothing. Nothing. Fuck that. I'm getting some sedation just to go get a teeth cleaning. Okay, between the 17th and 19th centuries, medicine in the United States reflected a narrowly limited understanding of disease and a rather cursory training of medical practitioners. Public health institutions were few, feeble, and if here we go. Here's another one. I'm gonna write it down. Let's see. So y'all can do it. Epherne. Okay. Y'all, here we go. I'm talking about by the time we done, we're gonna be the illest. Here we go. Ephemeral. Okay, hold on. Ephemeral. Ephemeral. Okay, and what does it mean, y'all? Let me scoot it up closer to y'all. Lasting for a short time. I lost my spot. Okay. So public health institutions were few, feeble, and ephemeral. Why did she say and short lived? Rising momentarily with epidemics of yellow fever or smallpox and subsiding from neglect after the crisis resolved. Even the simplest public health measures, hand washing and antiseptic techniques, clean water, sound, pathogen free housing, and untainted food supply, sewage management, and quantitative disease reporting were all in the future. Antibiotics, epidemics of, oh shit, I'm going out, of yellow fever, malaria, tuberculosis, and other infectious diseases frequently raged unchecked. In the early 1700s, the mirrored situation in England and the rest of Europe, but medicine on the continent began to undergo moder- modernizing changes. Although these were very slow to cross at the Atlantic, Europe began to embrace public measures and medical advances, such as a widespread vaccination, scientific medical education, and the rise of the hospital. But the American progress lagged behind, especially in the insular South. The point of the chapter's unflattering, precise American medicine is not to castigate it for its primitivism, but to put Blacks' historical aversion to medical care into context. For most antebellum Blacks were subjected to Southern medicine. The South was particularly an unhealthy region and was home to 90% of of American Blacks, the majority of them who were enslaved until 1865. The first Blacks arrived in the colonies in 1619, and by the 1700s, there were only about 20,000 Blacks. But as the slave trade flourished, 20,000 more Blacks arrived each year. Although 30% of the transported slaves died in the nightmare of the Middle Passage, there were 550,000 chattel slaves in the United States by 1776, when Blacks constituted 20% of the U.S. population. By 1807, slave importation was legally prohibited throughout the country, and by 1860, the nation's 4 million enslaved Blacks had a value equivalent to $4 billion today. In some states, no wonder they got generational wealth and shit like that. No wonder. In some states, the Black population completely comprised slaves. Alabama, for example, forbade the presence of free Blacks. Yo, that's why I could feel that thick ass energy on everything I fucking love. I don't even know how Atlanta got like that. I don't know. I don't know. But all I'm saying is when I would drive when I was in hair school and shit, and I went to all the free shows as long as I could. But every time I went to Atlanta, because you got to drive through like Mississippi and you got to drive through a little bit of Alabama too. And I mean, I hated driving through there. It was like my worst nightmare. Like, I'd be thinking like, what if? That's why every time that I drove through them states, who bitch, I start early as fuck in the morning, 4, 3:30. So by the time I hit them states, the sun is shining bright as a motherfucker. Oh, it's about to play games. Fuck that, you ain't gonna get none of them white weirdos to get me. So the South in particular, da, 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 in Alabama. Hold on. I'm sorry, y'all. The South was the nadir of the American medical experience, visited by a deadly triple confluence, the pathogens of North America, Europe, and Africa. This unholy trinity yielded a bewildering array of unfamiliar infectious diseases such as hookworms, types of malaria, and yellow fever incubated by a subtropical climate that was hospitable year round to pathogens that could not thrive in the cooler north. Even familiar European illnesses flared anew in strangely virulent forms. And that goes to prove right there that when you're in different temperatures, things that are already living in your body can emerge. Because when I was little, I would get sick every winter because at that temperature, whatever was inside of me would come out. Like you would hear people, a lot of people always get sick in the cold, but that's because they got shit going on. You know what I'm saying? That's gonna come out. Your body's gonna get rid of what the fuck is in you, rather it be hella good or hella bad. You know what I'm saying? And I've done experienced a hella bad. So believe me, I know for sure. I think that's why I like colder weather. I don't know, but whatever. So abetted by the hot, marshy climate, poor sanitation, and and a public health vacuum. Although the South harbored a highly visible affluent class, the region's excuse me, sorry, y'all. The region's relative poverty led to a dearth of medical care and a host of unrecognized nutritional deficiency diseases. So did enslavement. Enslavement. A dramatically misunderstood set of diseases led to the adoption of heroic remedies calculated to kill or cure. Through the 18th century, Western medicine was not only misinformed, but dangerously so. Caustic medicines of the period often contained metabolic poisons such as arsenic or calomel, a compound of mercury and chlorine that was used as a purgative. Many other many other remedies contain highly toxic substances such as mercury and addictive schedule to narcotics, including the opiates, um, laudanum, opium, and morphine, as well as cocaine derivatives. So that means they would either get you fucked up and you forget you sick, or poison your ass till it go away. Or you just not sick forever because you did. Okay, the medicines addicted, sickened, or killed outright. They also can trigger chemical pneumo- so it's basically pneumonia, pneumonitis, or progressive lung injury if inhaled during a bout of ictronic or physician triggered vomiting. No studies seem to have been done on this point, but such lung injuries may have helped to account for slaves' higher death rate from respiratory disease. Induced vomiting was an everyday event because the common denominator of medical techniques in this period was the violent release of bodily fluids. Oh, yeah, that's how the barbers got that spinny thing because they used to do bloodletting. Copious bleeding, blistering, and the induction of violent diarrhea were standard therapies. Harsh laxatives or droughts, such as calomel or jalap, produce copious diarrhea and which leach nutrients, water, and electrolytes from the body. They also invited painful bed sores, which were open to infection and challenged by antibiotics. These crude therapies were not only unpleasant, but debilitating to ill persons and even to the strong and healthy. Arsenic, for example, produced not only the intended vomiting and diarrhea, but also wide range of other problems, including fainting, heart disease, disorders of the nervous system, gangrene, and cancers. Mercury's very serious effects included injury to the nervous system, profound mental deficits, hair and tooth loss, kidney and heart disease, lung injury, and respiratory distress. Mercury crossed the placental barrier and concentrated in breast milk, contributing to the high black infant death and birth defect rates. Thank you, Texas girl. Such ministrations were often fatal. The 1799 death of George Washington, hastened by a copious bloodletting, the debilitated former president could ill afford, and perhaps the best known example of a patient finished off by a misguided heroics of 18th century medicine. So he was just murking that fool. He thought he was doing a little bloodletting, but he was bleeding him out to death. However, whites of the slave owning class enjoyed better initial health, better nutrition, and less exposure to environmental pathogens and parasites that did enslave blacks. Slave owners did not suffer from overwork and exposure, so they were better able than slaves to withstand the rigors of bloodletting. Sensing this, many physicians and scientists discouraged bloodletting for slaves. Thomas Jefferson, statesman and amateur physician scientist, wrote unequivocally, "Never bleed a Negro." But in their everyday practices, physicians didn't listen. Dr. Lunsford Yandell wrote on March 16, 1833, "I was called before sunrise to visit a Negro woman. I took her from her I took from her 12 ounces of blood. I waited about 15 minutes when she had a severe convulsion. Such techniques as cupping, the use of heated glass jars to create a partial vacuum that drew blood upwards to the skin surface through an incision in the skin, and tref- trephination, the therapeutic drilling of holes in the skull, were risky for pampered, well nourished adults living in relatively healthy environments, but they were fatal attentions for sickly, undernourished, and exhausted slaves for their children who were even higher risk of succumbing to anemia or dehydration. Damn, damn, that's ill. So they take a heated jar, pull the skin up, and ugh. Oh my God. They was experimenting on everybody. Everybody could get the bloodletting business. Enslaved African Americans were more vulnerable than whites to respiratory infections. thanks to poorly constructed slave shacks that emitted winter cold and summer heat. Slaves' immune systems were unfamiliar with or naive to microbes that cause various pneumonias and tuberculosis, parasitic infections, and abysmal, abysmal nutrition also undermine blacks' um, immunological, I'm saying that wrong, rigor. Before antibiotics and sterile techniques, surgery was often a fatal affair. Unaware of the connection between bacteria and infections, surgeons operated in their street clothes and with dirty hands in filthy environments, such as the shacks that served a slave hospital. Even minor incisions or injuries could proceed to life-threatening infections with frightening hella fast. Shit, why they doing that? These sentences with all these big ass words and it don't even. I don't know. Like I think that's stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like why are you saying all that big ass shit? Why don't you just say what it is? You know? I don't know. But she's trying to show out for her haters. But I'm just saying like threatening infections with frightening rapidity. I don't know. I don't know. Southern medicine of the 18th and early 19th centuries was harsh, ineffective, and experimental by nature. Physicians' memoirs, medical journals, and planters records all reveal enslaved Black Americans bore the worst abuses of these empirical practices, which consummated. Okay, wait. Hold on. Continuance. Oh, continuance a hazardous degree of ad hoc experimentation in in medications and dosages, and even spontaneous surgical experiments in the daily practices among slaves. Physicians were active participants in the exploitation of African American bodies. I'm sorry, y'all. The records revealed that slaves were both medically neglected and abused because they were powerless and legally invisible. The courts were almost completely uninterested in the safety and health rights of the enslaved. The practice of hiring slaves out further endangered enslaved workers by removing much of the employer's incentive to keep the slave healthy and safe. Some humane plantation owners were careful to choose less risky work venues, but a great danger of slave death or disability was inherent in some forms of mining, tobacco products, rice farming, and most plantation work. In these settings, the slave's possible death became part of the owner's commercial calculations. Ominously for blacks, the owners, not the enslaved workers, determine safety and rational medical care, deciding when and what type of care was to be given because professional attention was expensive. Most owners dosed their own slave as long as they could before calling in physicians, who usually saw slaves only in extremes as a last resort. In clinical notes, medical journals, and memoirs, physicians consistently decried the planters' tendency to rely upon the cheaper administrations of overseers, slaves, and mistresses in order to save expense. Physicians' records also expressed disgust at the conditions in which enslaved workers were kept. Historian Richard Shryock observed in 1963. Of all critics, the Southern physician was perhaps, it's a quote, perhaps in the best position to report on the physical and moral treatment of the slaves, when he stated as he sometimes did, that Negroes were overworked and underfed. He can hardly be suspected of anti-slavery bias since he was the friend of the planter who employed him. As a matter of fact, he usually approved of the institution. Planters' own records and slave narratives Planters' own records and slave narratives corroborate physicians' complaints that planters provided professional medical care only when they deemed it necessary to save the slave's life, often too late. That's fucked up. And you could tell when somebody's sick and fucked up. You know what I'm saying? So just to ignore it until they just falling over in the fields or falling over wherever the fuck they at is fucked up. Owners who also restricted access to medical care by routinely accusing sick blacks of malingering. Slaves narratives and planters Slave narratives and planters' records reveal that an owner faced with a sick slave was likely to believe the illness was fake, fiend. Like, what the fuck is that? In her excellent and nuanced history, Working Cures, Healing Health, and Power on Southern Slave Plantations, Charlotte Fett describes how, in 1859, slave owner William Massey resentfully recorded that his 80-year-old slave, Patty, had just died of I know not what disease. She has been saying she was sick for nearly a year and always pretended to be sick. She's whole 80 years old. Like, oh my God. They are so, oh, they so lucky that our generation. Okay, hold on, y'all. Just shit, they lucky our generation. Anyway, I can't say that right. Mm-mm. Owners relied upon doctors to tell them whether their slaves were. Oh, I already did that. Okay, so she pretended to be sick. No doctor was ever summoned to investigate. Not even Patty's death seems to have exonerated her from charges of malingering. The enfeebled Patty was no longer valuable in the fields or as a breeder, so the nature of her sickness was inconsequential. Owners relied upon doctors to tell them whether their slaves were malingering, but physicians were less than objective. Dr. W. H. Taylor called in consultation for an enslaved man, prefaced his assessment with the phrase, remembering that simulation was a characteristic of his race. Mm, mm, mm. Doctors and owners wrote articles in which they shared medical ruses, techniques calculated to get blacks, healthy or not, back into the fields. Dr. M.L. McLeod even wrote his master's thesis on the fraudulent illnesses of slaves. He shared an incident in which he had accidentally administered an overdose of ammonium carbonate, a corrosive white powder that was often used as smelling salts, to a slave shaming a a slave shamming an epileptic fit. The burning sensation shocked her into abandoning her performance, and McLeod, like many other doctors, began to advocate such veiled medical violence when confronted with questionable illness in slaves. But masters also responded to suspected malingering or prolonged illness with frank abuse. Thomas Chaplin wrote in his Planter's Journal, Mary came out of the sick house today, or rather was whipped out. Owners and physicians who blurred the therapeutic line by referring jocular to whipping as medicine for malingering slaves. One complaining woman was treated with a cow skin or hickory switch to scourge her, to scourge her. Emphasis added in parentheses. Other doctors recommended that an owner apply 9 drops of essence of rawhide or oil of hickory to the back of a sick slave. Wow. Yet slave narratives occasionally speak of the kindness of a sympathetic white physician in the 19th. Slave narratives, Texas slave Wes Brady told WPA interviewers how the old white doctor to tended to us, helped them to get out of work. He took a little flour and meal and water and made pills. The doctor then told the master that the slave was too sick to work. Sometimes they stayed in the bed 3 or 4 days taking flour pills. Damn, that's what's up. Ish. But most physicians share the economic and political interests of slave owners and conspired with planters, their real clients, to subjugate slaves by invading their bodies. Former slave Martha Griffith Brown recalled that the kindly wife of Dr. Manley, who sometimes was called in by her master, did not believe in slavery, yet she dared not speak against it. And let's fucking know. Speak against the peculiar institution of the South. Sorry, y'all. It would injure the doctor's practice, a matter about which she must be careful. The belief in the internal malingering of slaves was also one tenet of scientific racism, a wide body of mostly unflattering beliefs about the bodies and minds of people of African descent. These beliefs were presented and presented as research findings, explained by scientific theories, and pro- sympathetic to, or were act I'm sorry, y'all, or were actively profiting from the institution of enslavement. So, not surprisingly, scientific racism provided medical and scientific justifications for slavery. Southern scientists claim that they alone could analyze blacks with authority. After all, they lived in proximity to blacks, had studied them, and understood their medical and intellectual characteristics. Northern scientists tended not to study African Americans because they were less important to the Northern economy, which was not directly based on chattel slavery. The care and treatment of slaves was as important aspect of a Southern medical regionalism, and the lack of attention to Negro medicine became increasingly bitter source of contention between Northern and Southern medical schools. As a result, Southerners urged medical students to eschew the schools of the North, and when tensions mounted on the eve of the Civil War, Southern students of Northern medical schools were holding rallies in which they voted to return South in mass. In Philadelphia alone, 200 Southern medical students withdrew from Jefferson College, and another 100 withdrew from the University of Pennsylvania during a single academic year. Wow, so they was just extra for the shits. Despite their claims of unique expertise, the shoddy research that Southern physicians conducted into Black health consisted of an untested nucleus of mythology about the biology nature of Blacks, negative visceral reactions to Blacks' appearance, historical writings, racial descriptions from antiquity, natural scientists, endless and largely fictional catalogs of racial traits, and biblical interpretations, all provided a framework for scientific and medical theories about Blacks. So did a blame the victim approach, to the poor health of the enslaved. The scientific racist emphasis was not upon fact based theories, logical methodologies, experimental data, control groups, and verification by replication. There were neither checks against accepting assumptions as facts nor any test for confounding social factors. So they didn't give a fuck so much, right? They were supporting slavery so much that they would intentionally base their science and their medical practices, as fucked up as it was, they would base it on their racist perception of the slave. That's basically what she was saying with all those big ass words for no reason. Basically, they didn't give them people didn't give a fuck so much. They protested at their prestigious schools to make their voices heard and created science around that, which was deemed useful in these universities. But they started to beef a little bit as they approached the Civil War because I guess the Southerners thought they would be better educated up north, considering their science wasn't based off of, oh, just look at this nigga right quick, right? It was based off of some real shit, just the human body in general. That's it. There certainly was no provisions for removing ethnocentric bias. This science was the embodiment of ethnocentric bias. This science was also served a critical political purpose, for it provided a biological and ethical rationale for enslavement. Historical documents reveal that African Americans recognized this hazardous medical agenda and resisted when they could. Thus, medical abuse fed doctor phobia. So, what did he say? Oh, I forgot how he said it. You, Eutros. So it's eutrophobia. Eutrophobia. It's spelled I-A. I'm gonna write that down. That's one of the words you gotta practice while you're washing dishes and shit. Iatrophophobia. So that's basically you have a fear of medicine. So I got that for sure. Because you can't trust them new. What did we say yesterday? We can't trust them new mother over there. You can't. Why could you? Look at what they do. The fear and loathing many Black Americans harbor to this day toward the American medical establishment. Damn. Okay, here we go. Another one. EXE. I don't know how to pronounce it though. The Gases, nigga. EXEGESIS. Let's find out because I need to know how to say that word. We already in an hour. We got 4 Care Bears. Say what's up in the chat, y'all. Introduce yourself and 4 likes. But we're gonna keep it pushing because I'm gonna try to get through this. I want to be on here 2 hours again. Let's see. Mm, mm, mm. Thank you. Exegesis. Exegesis. Critical explanation, interpretation of text, especially of scripture. Exegesis. An exegesis of American medical literature compiled in the service of scientific racism is beyond the scope of this book and has been and has excuse me, I couldn't see the light and has been ably completed elsewhere. However, a description of the most pertinent beliefs will help illuminate the atmosphere in which Blacks were medically abused and in which they learned to be wary of the precepts and practices of American medicine. The science of race has always been, ah, man, I don't know. Another one, y'all. I gotta step my vocab up. AMA. I probably would if I was reading it in my own head and could figure it out. But since I'm out loud, I'm like on the spot. You know what I'm saying? So I need it quick. AMALGAN. I wish y'all had a bell in there so you could be like, ding, ding, repeat that spelling again. Okay, how do you say this? Amalgam. Amalgam. Be like, run that back again. How you spell it? Okay, and what's that mean, y'all? A curious, a mixture or a blend. So the science of race has always been an amalgam. Oh, I like that. Mix, blend. That's cute. Has always been an amalgam of logic and culture. The nature of race itself is an important but new, nebulous and shifting facet of scientific medical thought. As early as AD 160, the Roman physician Galen described African men as possessing oversized sexual organs and inferior intelligence. But until the 17th century, the changing meaning of race had so that was the meaning of it. That was their meaning. Had encompassed only nations of families. Race in the singular also denoted of all mankind, as in the race of man. Oh my God, like why do they just want to shit on black folks like so tough? That's just so ill to me. Use of the term race to denote biologically different types of mankind evolved only in the 18th century, when the study of animal breeding gave rise to heightened awareness of animal subspecies and the possibility of breeding animals to encourage desired traits. Not coincidentally, this period coincided with the growth of the new, excuse me, with, I was down in another sentence, with the growth of the slave trade, when the biological distinctiveness of men became economically important. Those, y'all, I'm reading all bad. Those who studied the different groups of men were called ethnologists and were the forerunners of anthropologists. Ethnologists applied the classification and categorization methods of the natural sciences called, ah, another one, TAXONO. Me, bye. Here we go. Taxonomy. Taxonomy. I think I'm just rushing through this. Called taxonomy to study of man. Even after the meaning of race came to include subgroupings of man, it had several meanings. By races, some meant biological subspecies of man, analogous to the, oh, okay. But I don't know if it is. How did she say that last one more time? Taxonomy. Tax, tax on, oh, me. I'm gonna put me. Okay, and then what is this one? I think I said it right, y'all, but we can't be too sure. ANA, anal, analogous. I ain't even gonna act like I do, y'all. Do that for what? So then our extra sound stupid? Oh, here we go. Anagulus. Hold on, y'all. Almost got it. I got it. Anagulus. Analogous. I'm sorry, y'all. We got to pause for the cause for real, though. There it is. Damn. Analogous. Analogous. Oh, duh. Analogous. Oh, y'all got bored? I understand. Analogous to the different breeds of dogs. For example, Swedish naturalist Carl von Lean. I don't know. He's some French dude. The most famous of the taxonomy taxonomist categorized Africans as Homo afar, theorizing that black men had different evolutionary forebears and had evolved along a separate evolutionary track from white men. In 1735, the first edition of his, find out what he had. Hey girl, Shonda girl, how you doing? I hope you got your book and your notebook ready to go. You see, it gets real in one sentence. You get the two sentences, then you gotta look up something. How much pages we got? I'm tired. I ain't tired. Okay, let's do this. I don't wish I was reading by myself. No, I'm just like, dang, where was I at, y'all? Hold on. In 1735, the first edition of his, oh, it's some other shit. It's a book he wrote about subspecies, Homo sapiens, Americas for Native Americans, whom he described as ruled by superstition, Homo sapiens Asiaticus for Asians, whom he believed were ruled by ritual, Homo sapiens Europeans for whites, ruled by intelligence. But his system, Linnu's system, Homo sapiens at first, was ruled by caprice. Caprice. Like the car, we ride in caprice. A sudden and unaccountable change of mood or behavior. What? Ooh, that sounds like a bad car. But no, anyway. This use of the word race in the sense of a biologically distinct subset of Homo sapiens was popularized in 1749 by George Louis Leclerc and some other French stuff, a wealthy French intellectual who made important contributions to medicine and natural history. I'm going to call him Buffoon, but it's Buffon. Notably theorized that the resemblance between apes and humans hinted at a common ancestry. For other theorists, race indicated entirely different species of men with different origins as well as different characteristics for blacks and whites. Those who believed in this theory were polygenists. Still, others believed that whites and blacks shared a common ancestral ape in a single species. These were the monogenists. Most monogenists believe that whites and blacks were originally and inherently equal, but that blacks had suffered from environmental and social pressures that caused them to become inferior. Other monogenists believe that blacks uh, devolution had imparted permanent inferiority, although they still shared species designation with whites. Oh, okay. I think I think that's what we are over here, Care Bears. Throughout the 17th century and into the early 18th century, the theories of scientific racism were informed by the Bible as well as by medicine. Monogenists, for example, held that people of every race had originated from the biblical Adam and Eve. Gradually, blacks had taken on divergent characteristics such as darkened skin, woolly hair, and strong features dictated by their African climate. The idea that blacks' features were dictated by climate was already widespread. Shakespeare's Cleopatra, for example, is described as burnt black by Phoebus's amorous kisses. Mogenes believed that blacks' features were inferior to those of white men, but they also believed that they were malleable and that blacks could catch up to Caucasians. Nigga, these are some weirdos, okay? This is why I've been talking about weirdos. I can't even do it. I can't even do it. Can y'all do it? Because this is bullshit. Don't that sound like that's some bullshit? Got yeah. Mm-mm. But in the end, it was scientific beliefs that proved malleable, and by the late 1830s, but in the end, it was scientific beliefs that proved malleable. And by the 1830s, they bent to accommodate the political reality of abolitionism. Oh my God, why can't I read? They supported the abolishers of slavery. Okay. Why can't I read? Black and white abolitionists. I gotta pause for myself because girl, what's this? What is that? Abolitionists were turning world and domestic opinion against enslavement as inhumane, unjust, and unchristian, and pro-slavery physician scientists such as Josiah Clark Knott, Samuel George Morton, Louise, some weird ass last name, and George Robbins Glidden, leaders of the American School of Ethnology, went on the defensive. They responded by portraying the enslaved black as inherently debased and immutably so. No amount of training, education, or good treatment could make him the equal of a white man. According to polygenists, blacks were physically inferior and were liars, malingers, hypersexual, and idolent. Oh, they disrespect. In the early years of the 18th century, blacks were most often compared to beasts. Later in the century, comparisons to European children reigned instead. Children who never grow up, who could never grow up, and the slave became Peter Pan in blackface. The supposed lack of adult judgment rendered blacks unable to care for themselves and gave yet another justification for slavery. Wow. I had to let that sink in, y'all. That's ill. It is also important to trace the tangled distinctions between racism and racialism. Racists believe in an innate, unusual, immutable inferiority, but racialists is a confusing label because it is applied to people holding very different beliefs. The term can denote a person who believes that race or skin color the signal inherent attributes that the attributes in question are simply different, neither negative nor inferior. But racialist can also mean a person who interprets different features and qualities of blacks as superior. The word racialist has recently been recent, recently been used to describe actions taken to redress longstanding racial wrongs, such as affirmative action to bolster the fortunes of blacks. Then again, racialist can also be a mere synonym for racist, as long as it was used in England and has been adopted by racial hatred groups as a euphemism for racism. As a result of this semantic confusion, a once useful term has been rendered worthless by its many contradictory meanings. The awkward and pallid term race based seems the closest thing we now have to a neutral racial objective. Whatever their pet theory, the many physical differences between blacks and whites suggested a hierarchy of humanity to scientific racists. Different from whites meant inferior. If inferiority was documented in entire catalogs of black flaws that filled medical journals and textbooks. In 1839, Morton published a book written to demonstrate human skull measurements indicated a hierarchy of racial types. Morton determined that Caucasians had the largest skulls and therefore the largest brains, and blacks the smallest. His tests were the forerunner of phrenology, which sought to determine the character and intelligence by interpreting the shape of the skull. So you mean to tell me they sat around here and believe because they got big ass heads that they smarter than us? Get the fuck out of here and have several fucking seats. Period. So yeah, for those who just stepping in, we're reading the medical apartheid. I don't know what the title says or what's going on my lives, but hopefully it says the right thing. We almost through it, y'all. We don't got that much pages. We only got this much. Oh, I had to crack my head. By 1848, Louisiana's Samuel A. Cartwright, the family that prays. Have you ever seen that? Cartwright, MD, had gained, yeah, renown by publishing a plethora of articles on Negro medicine in Southern medical journals, leading the Medical Association of Louisiana to appoint him chair of its committee to investigate Black health and psychology or physiology. I'm sorry, y'all. The same year, Cartwright published his paper, "The Diseases and Physical Peculiar Being Peculiar About or the Peculiar Things About Black Folks, Peculiarities of the Negro Race." I gotta do it like in kindergarten. um, Cartwright augmented his scholarly work with a constant onslaught of medically based pro slavery letters to newspapers and popular magazines. Also, he was just trying to get his point across. He supported I'm sorry, y'all. His wide his widely read claims of black inf- girl, I'm getting grouchy with myself inferiority with a mix of biblical lore and scientific theories that was not unusual for his time. Cartwright suggested that blacks' physical and mental defects made it impossible for them to survive without white supervisors and care. Are you kidding me? Alleging that the cranium of blacks were 10% smaller than that of whites. Y'all remember that scene When Leonardo DiCaprio on Django, or as some like to refer improperly, even though Django said it himself, the D is silent, the Django. You remember when Leonardo busted out the skull of his dad's slave and he had the same ideology? You remember he was like, oh man, he was referring to the pineal gland, but really, that's another topic. That's another topic. But y'all remember that part? He had the same ideology, which backs up the facts. And you know, he was in Mississippi. Candyland was in Mississippi. You know how they got, she's telling us how they got down. Okay, blacks no percent smaller than that of whites, preventing full development of the brain and causing a stunting of the intellect. French scientist Lewis added that in the Negro, the cranium closes on the brain like a prison. It is no longer a temple divine. To use the expression Malfigi, Malpighi, but a sort of helmet for resisting heavy blows. Oh my God. Let's find out what that word is, because it sounds like a word for a hat, a helmet, something that goes on your head. That's what it sounds like. Let's see. M-A-L. Hold on, y'all. Let me write it down. Malpighi. Girl. Oh my God. Pigh. Hold on, y'all. I got it. I got it. I got it. I got the definition. Malpighi. My Malpighi. Okay. And let's see, what's it? Malpighi. So that's how you said it. I was almost there. Italian physiologist, a pioneer in microscopic and anatomy. He identified the capillary system, but it's not giving a definition. Oh, Malpighi. So I guess it was something to describe something, maybe encapsulating something. They're just referring to these different scientists by the free dictionary. Let's see. Malpighi. Yep, for his description of the capillary system. So, I mean, can you use it in a sentence, please? Heart rest in peace, Alex. The back, I would be like, Alex, I don't know for 300. Well, anyway, we're going to assume that because that's what it sounds like. Because the way it's described is as though the way he said it enclosed to take heavy blows. So that indicates with him using that in a sentence, to use the expression of Malpighi, but a sort of helmet for resisting heavy blows. Am I thinking about that right? To kind of encapsulate something? Right. I know what apartheid means, but thank you for the definition, though, and putting it down in there because we all about that vocab during reading real talk and healthy reading sessions, okay? Cartwright even asserted that blacks had a very different breathing apparatus and skeletal structure from that of whites. By 1851, Cartwright had also discovered and described a host of imaginary black diseases whose principal symptoms seem to be of lack of enthusiasm for slavery. What the fuck you want them to be, Jews that they locked up? Like, what the fuck? Escape might have seemed normal behavior for a slave in ancient Greece or Rome, but Cartwright medically condemns such behavior in American blacks. Oh, offering a diagnosis of drapetomania. So Drake, Drapetoniania. What the fuck is that? Watch it be some bullshit, y'all. Watch it be some bullshit. He diagnosed them with some bullshit because they wasn't hell happy. They didn't show what he say. They didn't show enthusiasm for slavery. They ain't got no pronunciation for your girl. Let's see the definition then, y'all, right quick. Drapetomania was a conjectural mental illness. Also, they deemed it as a mental illness in 1851. American physician Samuel A. Cartwright hypothesized as the cause of enslaved Africans fleeing captivity, contemporarily reprinted in the South. Cartwright's article was widely mocked and they roasted him in the North, basically. We ain't going to go through all that. Here we go, y'all. How do you say it? Drapetomania. Drapetomania. Okay. Drapetomania. Wow. So he made up, just like she said, an imaginary disease because they didn't like what the fuck was going on around them. That's ill. That's ill. Mm-mm-mm. From the Greek words flight and insanity. So drapetomania from the Greek words flight and insanity. Wow. And so here's another one, y'all. Hebertud. I'm having a hard time pronouncing these words. And it's making my head go for a little whirl because it's having to pronounce words I haven't seen before in a different way is making me overthink words I know. Okay, HEB. I told you I won the game with this book. ETUD. I bet it's a person. Oh no, here we go. Hebetude, the state of being dull or lethargic. Hebetude was a singular laziness or shiftlessness that caused slaves to mishandle and abuse their owner's property. Let me write that down. Oh, I did. Okay. I'm gonna write these down in the thing so people when they watch it back to see it in the chat. So far we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words already. Okay. um the state dysphagia. Oh my god, y'all, what the fuck? I feel like I gotta go to college or something. Dysthiopica. Oh my god, like that's why it take 30 years to read this. Dysthesa. Hey, come on, help me out, y'all. Just have the word in there. I gotta type this whole long ass motherfucking AETHIOPRP. You know what I was doing. How you say this stupid shit? They just making up shit. That's why we can't say the shit. We don't even know how to say this shit. Because they making shit up. That's why we don't know how to say this. Because this nigga done put some words together. An alleged illness. In psychiatry, dysphagia, atypica, was alleged mental illness described by American physician Samuel A. Cartwright getting on my motherfucking nerves in 1851, which proposed a theory for the cause of laziness amongst slaves. Today, dysphagia is considered an example of pseudoscience and part of scientific racism because they didn't even have to put that little stupid ass word there, which I'm gonna look up to. Edifice. Edifice. While I'm getting mad, hold on. You ain't gonna be running no words by me. Building in building, especially a large, imposing one, a complex system of beliefs, the concepts on which the edifice edifice of capitalism was built. Oh, edifice. Okay. Okay. So boom, we got 2 and 1 on that one. Boom, boom. Okay. Where we got making up shit was another black behavioral malady. See what I'm saying? Malady. I was thinking of the hair book from hair school, which was characterized by a desire to destroy the property of white slave owners. Cartwright claimed that it differs from every other species of mental illness as it was accompanied with physical signs or lesions of the body discoverable to the medical observer. Stroma africana was the form of tuberculosis that physicians misdiagnosed as a peculiarity. Oh my God. Peculiar. You see what I'm saying, y'all? You see what I'm saying? I know that word. I know that word. And oh my God. Because you know what I'm realizing? This is what I'm realizing. The reason why we can't understand this shit is because they making that shit up. That's why. Peculiarly African disease. African deferred to blacks. Suppose, hold on. Girl, oh my god. It's another motherfucker word. I don't know. Cachexia. God damn, can we get through a chapter without six? Like I'm back in school. Cachexi. Yeah, made that shit up too. Cachexia. Who came up with that shit? Cachexia. Cachexia africana referred to blacks' supposed propensity for eating non-food substances such as clay, chalk, and dirt. Maybe because they was hungry. Actually, this disorder, which is called pica today, is not. I know about that word. Why didn't they just use pica? Not racially specific, and the cravings it inspires were probably related to the rampant malnutrition amongst slaves. Exactly. Of course, they was just eating whatever they was hungry. Tellingly, Dr. Cartwright recommended that these ailments be treated with corporal punishment, with internment and work camps. Put the patient to some hard kind of work in the open air and sunshine. The compulsory power of the white man by making the slothful Negro take active exercise, puts into active play the lungs, through whose agency the the vitalized blood is sent to the brain to give liberty to the mind. Okay, let me run that back, y'all. Let me run it back because I said that sentence all wrong. So he said to put them in work camps and shit. So he had a little dumbass quote. And what did it say? Where's the beginning of the quote? So he's basically saying, I ain't gonna read that stupid ass sentence. Basically, what he's saying, make the slave work out in the sunshine as he don't already work hard enough himself all every day. And this is gonna give him, it's gonna send the blood to the brain and give freedom, liberty to the mind so he could feel better about being a motherfucking slave, which should fix the cachexia disease that he made up and maybe fix the dysphagia and the drapetomania. What the fuck kind of dumbass shit is that? Other medical disorders were thought to manifest differently. You maybe because you snatched their babies away, maybe because you beat up their girlfriend, maybe because you fucking their daughter and their son. Did it have a little something to do with that? Maybe because you fucked him in the ass and he didn't want it. Can we talk about that for a second? Oh yeah, and as soon as NiiiiGhT drops that bug breaking, we are going to be reviewing that motherfucker right here, live front and center, and I'm gonna do it blow by blow like I ain't never seen it. I ain't gonna cheat. I ain't gonna watch it before y'all or nothing. Anyway, other medical disorders were thought to manifest differently, usually less severely in blacks. Syphilis, for example, was held to be racially uh, demorphic. Demorphic. Physicians believed it worked its most severe damage within the neurological system of whites, but that the less evolved neural system of blacks was left relatively unimpaired, which is a whole lie. In blacks, syphilis was thought to attack the muscles, including the heart. This belief that syphilis in blacks differed dramatically from the disease in whites provided a rationale for the infamous U.S. Public Health Services. To, oh my God, the U.S. Public Health Services Tuskegee study of syphilis in the untreated Negro male between 1932 and 1972. 600 black men, their wives, and their children were deceived into participating in a research study that denied them treatment so that the public health service scientists could trace the progress of the disease in blacks. In an 1850 paper, Cartwright insisted that whites and blacks differed so dramatically that the same medical treatment which would benefit or cure a white man will often injure or kill a Negro. In the quote, this universal belief in uniquely black diseases led doctors and planters to clamor for a textbook on the medical care of black. But see, they should have had no fucking better because meanwhile, your daddy and your mama going down to the whatchamacallits to smash the black men and women. So they should have known that that was a lie anyway. But such a book was not written till almost a century later when it appeared in 1942. It was no paean to white superiority, but rather was entitled to the biology of the Negro, a text edited by African American physician Julian Herman Lewis. It was followed in 1975 by the work Textbook of Black Related Diseases by Richard Allen Williams, MD. Ooh, hold on, y'all. I gotta write that one down. Uh, okay, so I'm writing down textbook of black related diseases. I might have to read that on my own, so I'll keep embarrassing myself. By Richard Allen Williams. Ricky Allen Williams, MD, baby. Allegedly, inferior cognition was only the tip of the iceberg. In 1854, several years after Cartwright published report on the diseases and physical peculiarities of the Negro race, and 5 years before Darwin published on the origin of species, mobile Alabama physician Josiah Knott, MD, and George R. Glidden produced an equally popular screed entitled Types of Mankind. In it, they claimed that blacks' physical and mental differences signaled their polygenic origins and proved black inferiority. For example, Knott theorized that the distinctive knee joint and long keel of the black man proved that he had been created as a submissive knee bender, a servant to the whites. Scientists, no, that was for that agility so he could smash on you, bitch. Scientists adjudged the dark skin of Africans as a biblical curse that set them aside as eternal servants to other men. Black Americans were thought of as a race that was biologically identical to the African race, and there originally was some logic to this because 20% of slaves were still native Africans in 1780, although that number dropped to only 10% by 1830, a few decades after the slave importation officially stopped. Mulattoes, the progeny of black white matings, were considered to be a separate race. According, no wonder we got that beef. According to ethnologists of American School, blacks features mark them as a different species, large buttocks and genitals that indicated hypersexuality, a head covering that was not hair, but analogous to the wool of livestock. The size of the skull determined by painstaking but rigid measurements. The prognathous facial angles of blacks, and thick lips that testify to their ape-like nature. Had scientists of the era more correctly noted that apes and chimpanzees have the thinnest lips, they doubtless would have ignored this feature before they credited black folks with such evolutionary advance. Physicians discovered many imaginary physical differences in blacks, such as fingernail anomalies and distinctive another one. Topography. Topography. What does that mean? Topography of the breast. So does that mean bigger breasts? Topography of breasts. Already underlined it. Okay. Topography. The arrangement of the natural and artificial features in an area. Okay, so the way that it was our shit is distributed, how we got that book, because you know how back in the day, all this was not popping back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Having ass and titties wasn't popping, but now they copying us. You know what I'm saying? So they're basically talking about how our bodies are built, both black men and women. Elongated penises, disproportionately large hands and feet, distended labia and clitorises. Oh my God, all of which provided scientific races with ample evidence of Black biological primitivism. In fact, few anatomical sites escape persistent labeling as oh my God, definite. Definite indicators of Black inferiority. As late as 1903, Dr. W.T. English observed a careful inspection reveals the body of the Negro a mass of imperfections from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet. Even biological advantages were cast as racial flaws. In discussing the tendency of Black folks to survive yellow fever epidemics that killed whites, one physician denounced the inferior susceptibility of Blacks. Wow. So all that made us awesome and beautiful, they deemed it as, what did he say? A mass. I'm gonna do it. A mass of imperfections. So everything that they copying, they killing themselves, they dyeing themselves brown in the tanning bed, they curling their hair up to look like ours, they blackfishing all day, they throwing braids and cornrows and shit, these stupid bitches. Excuse me. I'm talking about the stupid Black bitches that be like, yeah, white girl, wear them braids. That's what I'm talking about. Doing all that shit to look like us. And meanwhile, they've been shitting on us all this time, and they still shit on us. They shit on us while painting themselves brown. You know what I'm saying? And the niggas go after them with their stupid asses, not even knowing that they're being mocked. It makes zero sense. Oh, my shit. We gotta keep it moist. I lost the top to the Bath and Body Works. Okay, we almost through. We almost through. Okay, insidious immunities is the next part of this chapter. Polygenism, the belief in separately evolved species, also held that persons of one race could not survive in the climate designed for another. Whites who tried to live and work in West Africa, a climate designed for blacks, died in droves, earning in the white man's grave. When the 19th century death rate for British soldiers ranged between 483 and 668 per thousand soldiers in Africa, compared to the general annual death rate of 15 per thousand. Historian Warwick Anderson, MD, describes how the U.S. military sought to exploit the natural affinity of Black Americans for the tropics. In 1900, Nathaniel Southgate Shaler, the dean of Harvard's Lawrence Scientific School, proposed that the troops which are required for federal service in tropical lands might might well be recruited from Negroes. Shaler was convinced that such children of the tropics would make excellent soldiers, at least as infantrymen, because the African American Constitution was preempted to the tropical disease environment. But in the Philippines, Shaler's distinguished advice was already redundant. During the previous 2 years, the United States had been using African American and Filipino scouts to suppress the resistance to its occupation of the archipelago. I don't know what that is. Another one. I don't know, but the class structure, okay? But we trying to get through this chapter. Physicians claim that whites could never work in Africa or in subtropical environments such as the U.S. South. The Southern land The Southern Landowning class, including physicians, paid attention because they equated disease with a sinister climate and were confronted with an oppressively hot and humid, malarious environment that they believed to be teeming with yellow fever, smallpox, pellagra, typhoid, dysentery, and cholera. They were also faced with fertile lands and required backbreaking labor, with the attendant risk of heat prostration, sunstroke, and parasitic infestation. An immune oh my god. An immune population specially designed by the creator to work long, hard, and for free as submissive knee benders was the perfect answer to their dilemma. In mid century, Samuel A. Cartwright and his medical brethren, such as Charles Libbach and Bellabord, oh my God, Bellabord the immunities to malaria and yellow fever they claim blacks exhibited. But to fully justify enslavement, scientists such as NiiiiGhT had to turn from their naturalist texts to their Bibles, from which they deduced that blacks were the children of Ham, son of Noah, who, along with this progeny, was marked and condemned to be a servant to his brothers for having viewed his father's nakedness. Other similar Bible justifications were found, and not even ventured onto the twisted ethical high road when he insisted that yellow fever and malaria were visited upon whites as divine punishment for not enslaving blacks. He insisted that non-slaveholding whites contracted these diseases as a result of usurping. Oh, I bet you says in not natural order of things, natural order of things, natural black role as laborers in the field. So mine as well. Pragmatic planters and politicians ignore the religious moralizing, but embraced the useful fact that blacks were the only logical medical choice for backbreaking labor in the sunny fields. The immunities in question were usually partial and sometimes imaginary. Planters' own records bear best evidence that blacks' immunity to heat prostration was merely a convenient myth. One Virginia owner observed in 1825, hottest day ever. Men gave out and some fainted. The 1851 journals of K. Washington Skinner, overseer on the Gowrie plantation, noted on Monday last Cotta and Sari received a stroke of the sun. Many other Negroes staggered about. They probably not even giving them no water or nothing. And those dingbats didn't think, yo, what's up? You know what I'm saying? Blacks were supposed to be immune to malaria, but such immunity is complex and was poorly understood before 1900. Malaria denotes a group of lingering infectious diseases marked by long cycles in which waves of utter debility alternate with periods of better health. These periodic relapses can end in death, depending on the strain of malaria and immunological vigor of the sufferer. The disease is spread by parasites injected by the bite of a female mosquito, and at the time it was widespread out of New England, especially throughout the South. However, 18th and 19th century Southern physicians did not understand that malaria, which they called intermittent fever, actually had three different strains with different causes, symptoms, and prognoses. Is it almost 2 hours? Because if it is, your girl got to go. I mean, how much you got? Should I push through? I'm a push and pump, maybe. Hey, Andrea, girl. Okay. Okay, I'm here on this chapter. Okay. Falciparum and Vivax malaria are the most common North American strains. Another strain, malariae, is so rare and so similar to Vivax that scientists tend to consider them a single entity, which antebellum physicians called tertian fever. Causes racking symptoms of high fever, chills, headache, icy bone pains, anemia, profuse sweating, and exhaustion. many of which recur at 48-hour intervals. It can become chronic and last for years, but it kills only 5% of its victims. Malaria ends quickly, but it is much more severe and can cause a stroke by compromising the blood flow to the brain and kidneys. In 1826, Dr. Philip Tiedemann wrote, "Intermittent fever, so hostile to the constitution of the whole of the white inhabitants, has no terror for the Negro, who, when attacked, requires but little medicine to rid him of his insidious enemy and to secure him against return." But see, if we were called back on them other pages, they were basically giving them smelling salts and working them out in the sunshine because you know what I'm saying. They didn't believe that they was really sick. So but they did have some good ones. But I'm just saying, don't make it seem like. However, records in physicians' journals are full of accounts of slaves laid low with or dying of malaria. It was an extremely common complaint, one that coincided inconveniently with harvest times in the late summer or the early fall. That's why I can't stand summertime. All the bugs and shit. With harvest times in the late summer or the early fall. But that garden gonna be on deck this year, I promise, I swear. So it was a serious monetary concern to the planters who were willing to expend money on physicians to get their malaria stricken slaves back into the fields as soon as possible. Scientists were wrong in posting Africans' innate absolute resistance to malaria, and they were equally wrong in suggesting that whites could mount no immunity. Anyone, black or white, who grows up in a malarious area and survives repeated infections and bouts with Fal- falciparum comes to live with an uneasy truce with the parasite, becoming not quite well but not acutely ill. This state of immunological compromise misled planters into thinking that these slaves were unaffected when they were exposed to malaria, the F malaria, and did not die. Such immunity is temporary, lasting only as long as one remains continually exposed to the F parasite. Planters and physicians knew this and deliberately cultivated local malarial immunity in their newly arrived slaves by seasoning them or allowing them to be bitten by area mosquitoes, thus infecting them with the local strain. Whites underwent seasoning as well. However, one type of malarial immunity is racially distributed in the United States. 95% of sub Saharan African and approximately 7% of African Americans are Duffy negative. This means they lack the Duffy antigens, without which the Plasmodia vivax cannot penetrate the blood cells and cause illness. People of any ethnic group who have sickle cell trait also enjoy a partial protection against the F malaria. So do people with one gene for the related blood diseases or any kind of blood disease. Moving along. Interestingly, the contradiction of black slave as both riddled with imperfections from head to toe and a hardy laborer who was impervious to most illness escaped their scientific races. Scientists expressed whichever opinion fit their political needs at the moment. Don't that sound like today? Don't that sound like today? R&P, Hank Aaron, at the moment, as abolitionist Frederick Douglass suggested when he observed that 99 of 100% polygenists were Anglo-Saxon slave owners. Scientists also claim that the primitive nervous system of blacks were immune to physical and emotional pain and to mental illness. They need to come to my family house because I could show you some shit. Ain't nobody immune from no goddamn mental illness. Don't let nobody lie to you. This belief, which will be discussed at greater length in the next chapter, release physicians and owners from the responsibility of shielding black slaves from painful medical procedures and justified torture such as branding, whipping, hobbling, and maiming. Oh my God, I almost want to end here, but I'm gonna keep it pushing, y'all, because we gonna get through chapter one, y'all. We gonna get. So, how y'all feeling about this? Y'all feeling what? Mad? Like what the fuck? Like how y'all feeling? And how y'all feeling about all these motherfucking vocabulary words? Speaking of which, let me put them in here so the people who watch this back can be on deck and we could chop it up a little bit. I'm about to get through this chapter. No, I'm gonna do it at the end. I just switched my mind. I'm gonna do it at the end. I'm gonna do it at the end. Okay. It made me. All these all these precepts of scientific racism, although convenient for the slave owner and physician, were highly illogical articles of faith. Just one second, y'all. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Why did I just think of Kunta Kinte when they chopped his foot off? When I was thinking of Mamie. Let's see. Although convenient for the slave owner and the physician, were highly illogical articles of faith. So was the supposed inferior intelligence of blacks, because planters and doctors behaved in many contexts as though they held the abilities and judgment of blacks in high regard, employing slaves in responsible positions as nurses, cooks, herbalists, midwives, overseers, leaders of work gangs, accountants, and operators of farm factory implements. Owners reap profits from many patents on slave inventions, and physicians used slaves as skilled apprentices who often went on to practice independently. Oh, like that one movie that oh, we should do that movie. Uh uh oh, I forgot his name. He ended up on the wall. His painting ended up on the wall. Most Def played him. He was a doctor. He did the heart surgery, y'all. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. That is a good ass movie. Y'all should watch it. My dad made me watch all the black movies, okay? Owners read profit. My dad, anything black, my dad showed me. That's what me and my mom kind of don't get along in some ways because of that. Cause I ain't gonna talk about my mom like blah, 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 blah. Dependent upon specialized skills, slaves. Okay. Patents, inventions, and physicians use skills, apprentices who often went on to practice independently. White households depended upon the specialized skills and discernment of slaves, not the other way around. Well, how could that? It would be impossible. You know what I'm saying? In descriptions of runaways, published as newspaper advertisements, a master's financial interest necessitated an honest description of his vanished slave. There are These are replete with references to artful, well-spoken, crafty, and intelligent slaves who typically absconded in well-organized groups, often with a light-skinned Confederate who posed as their owner until they reached freedom. Advertisements referred to some slaves not only as literate a but as polyglots, fluent polyglots. With another one, polyglots, fluent in French. So they bilingual, trilingual. What is that? Hold on, y'all. Let's see what this said. I'm gonna have a whole book of definition words for y'all. Do y'all homework. Okay, Bumaclat, polyglots.
Polyglot.
I said it right. Hey, a person who knows and is able to use several languages. Okay, that's what bilingual nigga. Okay, polyglots. These words, man, they be making them up, man. They be making them up. Fluent in French, German. Oh, like in Dutch, like like Django's wife. Some were refined violinists and declaimers. Others practiced professions such as doctor or dentist. The master's plaintiff ah, the master's plaintiff wondered that an apparently docile slave should have given him the slip is a complace is a commonplace of these advertisements. I'm sorry, I'm struggling, y'all. The clearly held precepts of scientific racism sound nakedly racist, absurd, or both today. But in 18th and 17th, 18th and 19th century, scientific racism was simply science, and it was promul- promulgated, promulgated, promulgated. I think it's promulgated, promulgated. It is promulgate. Watch,
Promulgate.
promulgated. And if you don't know, promote or make widely known. So to give spread the word. It's the word promulgated by the very best minds at the most prestigious institutions of the nation. Other more logical medical theories stressed the equality of Africans and laid poor black health at the feet of their abusers, but these never enjoyed the appeal of the medical uh, philosophy that justified slavery, and along with it, our nation's profitable way of life. Dr. Gardner, I'm calling him Gardner, whose slave market narrative opened this chapter, spoke for many when he claimed that slave owners jealousy guarded, must have jealousy guarded their slaves' health, coddling them to protect their own economic interests. I didn't get that one, but I'm gonna keep it pushing. In the Washington slave pen, Gardner witnessed the physician in his role of pronouncing the slave to be sound, yet he confused the physician's certification of the slave's soundness with concern for her health. Soundness did not speak to her welfare or happiness, but rather to the ability to extract work from her, the likelihood of fetching a good price on the market, and her breeding ability. Many common medical problems, from mental illness to chronic malaria and parasitic infection, were compatible with the demands of an enslaved laborer's work. In fact, many ailments emanated from those workloads. So in some cases, the slaves were deemed as they good to go, but basically it was really fucked up. And a lot of the diseases and illnesses stemmed from their harsh ass, fucked up ass reality. Profit drove the medical treatment of slaves from their very first encounters with Western medicine. Kidnapped Africans en route to the Americas were uh, examined by ship surgeons in an attempt to cut losses by immediately jettis- jettisoning those with such stigmata as Winterbottom's sign, a swelling of the lymph nodes found in those who harbored trypanosomiasis or sleeping sickness. They and others who would not survive the horrific Atlantic journey were unceremoniously thrown overboard. Southern physicians engaged in a bustling soundness practice by guaranteeing the fitness of worker slaves who were to be bought and sold. Doctors charged as much or more for this service as they did for standard disease treatments. A simple pronouncement of health, for example, could cost anywhere from $2 to $10. In the 1800s, Virginia, in the 1850s Virginia, but such assessments were sometimes challenged when the slave died or became incapacitated soon after having been pronounced sound. Expert physicians' testimony commanded as much as $50, a very steep 1 day fee for the times. Thus, testifying to soundness in court became an important and lucrative part of medical practice. And in 1858, Doctor Jeriah Harris of Savannah Medical College declared the need for a manual that cataloged the chronic or debilitating diseases that rendered blacks unsound for work. He then cannily supplied the manual himself. Among the deal breaking ailments it cited were loss of limbs, cancer, asthma, debilitating injury to muscles, keloid scars, and syphilis. How was this the interest in fitness for work or soundness at odds with slave health? With the soundness rather than the welfare of the slave in mind. For example, slaves were not immunized against smallpox as whites were because this might leave marks on their bodies that could discourage buyers. The memoirs of Williams Wells Brown, originally a slave and later a doctor, recount how the graying hair and beards of aging slaves were black on the auction block. They were subsequently purchased by buyers who expected the toil of a young man, but blacks countered with ruses of their own. As slavery apologists Edward A. Pollard illustrated in 1859, Noe on the mounting the steps to the auction block, had assumed a most drooping aspect, hanging his head and affecting the feebleness of old age. He had probably hoped to avoid a sale by such a dodge. Former slave Bethany Vinay recalled her memoirs. So this right here, what I'm about to read, is from a woman slave. Mm. I had been told by an old Negro woman certain tricks that I could resort to when placed on the stand that would likely to hinder my sale. And when the doctor who was employed to examine the slaves on such occasions told me to let me see my tongue, he found it coated and feverish, and turning from me with a shiver of disgust, and he was obliged to admit that at the moment I was in a very bilious condition. Renee did not disclose the specific advice the woman shared, but many common therapeutics of her day, such as emetic calomel, dramatically inflame the tongue, gums, and saliva glands. So here she goes talking again. One after another of the crowd felt of my limbs and asked me all manner of questions, to which I replied in the ugliest manner I dared. And when the auctioneer raised his hammer and cried, "How much do I hear for this woman?" the bids was so low I was ordered down from the stand, and Eliza was called up in my place. Poor thing, there were many eager bids for her, for such as she, the demands of slavery were insatiable. Oh man, she set up the light skinned girl like, oh, uh, uh. They was like, "Ooh, take your broke ass off here." Next up, Beyonce. Ah, $200. Oh, that's not right. I shouldn't. But I mean, look what that's what happened, right? Soundness for women and sometimes for men was tied to sexual attractiveness and to reproductive ability. Thomas Jefferson declared, I consider a slave woman who breeds once every 2 years as profitable as the best worker on the farm. Every year from 1750 until the emancipation of one of every five black women of childbearing age between 15 and 44 gave birth. Girls were forced and enticed into sexual relationships at an unhealthy early age by owners who cited the girls' supposedly hot-blooded African nature, sexually transmitted hot-blooded nature. Period. Stop. Sexually transmitted diseases thrived on the plantation, notably syphilis. Against the naive Africans had little protection. Enslaved women's vulnerability began on the sea passage from Africa, as recorded in the 1788 memoirs of English ship's surgeon Alexander Falconbridge. Falconbridge. On board some ships, the common sailors are allowed to have intercourse with such of the black women whose consent they could procure. The officers were permitted to indulge their passions among them and pleasure as sometimes are guilty of such excess as disgrace. I'm sorry, y'all. I hate the way they talk back then. I hate the way they talk in this book. The officers are permitted to indulge their passions among them at pleasure, and sometimes are guilty of such excess as a disgrace human nature. I think they meant to say disgraced human nature. But whites ascribe black women's sexual ability not to their powerlessness, but to a key of scientific racism. Blacks were unable to control their powerful sexual drives, which were frequently compared to those of running animals. This lack of control made black men dangerous and black women sexually aggressive Jezebels who habitually entice white men into inappropriate sexual relations. Dr. Lewis' weird last name, the famous Harvard anthologist, explained, as soon as the sexual desires are awakened in the young men of the South, they find it easy to gratify themselves by the readiness of which they are met by mixed race house servants. This blunts his better instinct in the direction and leads him to gradually seek more spicy partners. I have heard the full blacks called by fast young men. Okay, okay. So they gonna blame the women for the black women for the white boys' whorish tendency. Let me tell you something from pure 100% experience. Them motherfucking white boys, them white boys, I'm telling you, if I show you my message, I could have a stable of white boys right now, no lie, 100% facts. Like, and they fucks with us, but then they would turn that shit around. Did you see how they turned that shit around? As soon as his sexual awakening happens, it couldn't resist her. Meanwhile, baby girl, just like this, passing out the food, and all of a sudden, uh, that shit is fucking crazy. And all as soon as the sexual desires are awakening in the young men of the South, they find it easy to gratify themselves by the readiness in which they are met by colored house servants. What the fuck she gonna do? Say no and get beat up? Like I'm telling you, these motherfuckers are weirdos. This theory did not. Oh, like 12 years a slave. Did not allocate any responsibility to the master as the owner of the women and the person who decided when and with whom she would have sexual relations. But slave narratives bemoaned the rape and sexual abuse that threatened a black woman at every turn. Mary Reynolds, who was born on a plantation of Dr. Kilpatrick in Black River, Louisiana, reflected, "Us niggers knowed she no, the doctor took a black woman quick as he did a white woman and took any on his place he wanted, and he took them often. Mm-mm. As the personal property of the master, black women had no social or legal protection. They could not legally be raped. Legally be raped are our word. Even consensual relationships had to be viewed through the lens of enslavement. In her memoirs, former slave Harriet Jacobs sadly, oh, here we go. Let me find out she loved her masturbate. Mused that she eventually equates to such sexual demands because it was less humiliating to give in than to be forced. Once pregnant, women typically at hard were kept at hard labor until their fifth month, and pregnant women were made to lie in the trenches that accommodated their bellies so they could be beaten without harming the unborn child. Oh my God, I heard about that where they dig a hole for the belly and the woman lays down in it so it doesn't hurt the child, even though the soul, the DNA, the spirit, that travels through our DNA, and that's called pathology. Soundness considerations also dictated levels of care, which varied according to the slave's value. Slaves who were strong, young, and valuable received a quality of care that was denied to the feeble as well as to the aged, who were often cast off the plantation or sold to physicians when the expense of their care exceeded their market value. Former slave Martha Griffith Brown recalled the words in which an abusive master refused to pay a doctor to treat an elderly slave who had spent her life working on his plantation. I ain't going for I ain't going for to spend money on that old nigger unless you cure her and make her able to work and pay for the money that's been laid out for her. If she be going to die, why let her do it in the cheapest way, you motherfucking bitch? I hope he's in hell getting beat to death by her. Um, the owner physician pact. Oh Lord, we got almost shit. How many we got? Three. Damn, it looks like it's 2.5 hours every time. We gonna be in class, y'all. On not Tuesdays and Thursdays. You better watch for the sweet. Remember that song? No, Wednesdays and Thursdays. Who's that? Taco? Taco, get away from those water bottles. I can see you. I gotta throw stuff at him, y'all. Southern physicians supported the slave system with racial medical theories and diagnosis, but the slave system also supported them. In an era when physicians enjoyed considerably fewer financial rewards and lower professional status than they do today, these physicians derive most of their income from caring for slaves. As Samuel bitch ass Cartwright, who's getting on my nerves if I see his name again, observed in 1853, the most profitable kind of practice is that among Negroes. They just love making money off our backs, don't they? Slavery created a medical partnership between physician and planter that eclipsed the patient physician dyad. The traditional Western healing relationship, whatever. In the slaveholding United States, where the planter owned the slave and employed the physicians, owners made their complaints or treatment wishes known to physicians and gave or withheld consent from procedures from sterilization to amputation to autopsy. The planter, not the slave, had to be satisfied with the results. The planter, in every important sense of the world, was the patient. The Southern relationship was a slaveholder physician dyad, with the slave left outside, unconsulted, uninformed, and with no recourse if she or he was unsatisfied, injured, or killed. A medical nonentity. Physicians were often slaveholders themselves. In fact, in 1847, state I can't see. Medical convention in Alabama issued a recommendation that doctors caring for slaves seek liens upon the human chattel if their bills were not paid. Slave owning physicians profited from their slaves in unusual ways: field work, housework, concubines, rented labor, and breeders of slaves. However, doctors also bought and hired slaves on whom to conduct experiments too painful, too risky, or otherwise too objectionable to inflict upon whites. I will examine many instances of this practice in the pages that follow. The matter of life insurance also illuminates the medical conflict between the slave's health and his master's economic interest in his soundness. Although Southern gentlemen found the prospect of insurance coverage for land owning whites and their families a distasteful parallel to insuring equipment and livestock, the practice of insuring slaves' lives um, escalated in the 1840s, period. Damn it. In 1858, 75% of North Carolina mutual life insurance company policies. Did we just expel something? Mutual life insurance company policies. And I was thinking in my head as I was reading, all these companies be started off the backs of slaves, our ancestors, and mutual life insurance, you motherfuckers. And they be having some good commercials. Hey, Taco, I'm sorry for yelling, Taco. That's so crazy. You know the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? But despite owners' assurances that their slaves were like members of the family, insurances research suggested that owners did not shy from maximizing the profit from their slaves, dead or alive. I bet you they didn't. Even Dr. Josiah Knott, he's getting on my nerves too. Samuel Cartwright and Josiah Knott, you bitches. The famous defender of slavery worried that I can't say that word because of the YouTube. Masters would allow sick or injured slaves to die without treatment or warning. Any man who will drive a horse cruelly will drive a Negro or operative to death if he can gain anything by doing so. South Carolina and Virginia insurance companies eventually refused to insure a slave's life for full value for fear that owners will allow them to die of their ailments. Insurers also hedged their bets by requiring physical examinations of slaves, by charging more for slaves placed in especially hazardous assignments, and by requiring proof that that the owner had the slave treated for medical conditions as they arose. Thus, companies that lately have lately taken heat for ensuring slaves' lives also took steps that protected those lives. Damn, damn. Spoke in my introduction of, oh my God, it's that word, y'all. It's that word. The word utro, utros, but it doesn't have an S. It's eutrophobia. It's IAATROPHOBIA. It's that word. Okay. Um, Basically the fear of medicine, fear of doctors, which we totally got a reason to be, right? A term for the fear of medical care that joins the Greek words for healer and fear. Taco. Hold on, y'all. I gotta throw something at him. Oh, he stopped because he heard me. Black fear of doctors has a very long history, and one of its early signs during slavery was that when they were not accusing slaves of malingering, overseers, planters, and physicians complained bitterly that slaves were concealing their illnesses because of the other shit, because they would beat them out the sheds and make them work when they were feeling horrible. In this, they were often correct. Slaves avoided the administrations of Western doctors by denying that they were sick. Oh, we're almost done. Okay, we're not almost done. We got like 12 chapters to go. But I mean, we almost done with chapter one. I'm gonna get through this, y'all. I'm gonna get through this, y'all. Oh, snap. The chat is cracking. Yeah. Besides Hitler, I think a little Nicky, when every day at 4 o'clock they shoved a pineapple up his ass. I hope they're doing like needles or something like that. Whatever instrument that they use, hopefully like it gets shoved up their ass. Um, King Chris World. All right, King. I'm new to your channel. Love this. Thanks for sharing. You're very welcome. I hope you come back next Wednesday and Thursday between apparently 6:30 and 7, y'all, okay? But it was 6:15 and 6. We're going to say 6:30 and 7 because after work that seems more realistic, but the times adjust, so it's pretty much around that time. And this weekend we're going to review American Skin. I already bought it. I haven't watched it, and we're going to review it together. Um if you're not familiar with the way I review movies, I invite you to watch some of my other ones so you can kind of see my style. I'm getting better. So, but I do go scene by scene and you will see some clips. So, I'm excited about this movie night. So yeah, let's get through these last pages so I could get these definitions in there. 2.5 hours, y'all. We've been going strong. Um, where was I, y'all? Oh, they were hiding their illnesses, right? They was hiding their illnesses because they sometimes they could get beat out, they could get beat and made to do other work. Sometimes they could get beat when they were really sick, and the slave master thought that they wasn't sick, and sometimes they would beat them even more fiercely. You know what I'm saying? Than any other time because they thought they was just trying to get out of work, but it really is they're really feeling like shit, and a lot of the times they would die, and sometimes well, let's finish this, y'all. We gonna talk. um and they would deny the illness as long as they could, even to the point of working while they were ill, discarding medications and hiding their children's sickness. This enraged masters and physicians because they believed that blacks' failure to report illnesses and to accept white cures led to premature death. and the loss of valuable slaves. However, slaves distrusted Western remedies as ineffectual and dangerous. They also complained that these treatments were stereotyped. The same remedies were offered for various ailments. Mary Reynolds will list her physicians' owners' entire materia medica, the common term for pharmacological supplies. For slaves in one breath, and this is a quote, Dr. Kilpatrick gives sick niggers ipecac and asafoetide. Oh my God, they are spelling these words like how she was talking. And oil and turpentine and black fever pills. In the quote. Work projects administration interviewers quoted former slaves Joe Hawkins as charging doctors. Okay, and this is a quote. Doctors then didn't doctor a person like they does now. No, sir. He'd bleed you so many minutes while he watch his big watch he's always carried. Bleed you for most any sickness. So he's like, I'm gonna get these herbs and call it a day. Okay. Plus, they coming straight from the motherland, so they really knew how to put some shit together. Um, and oftentimes, I don't know if she's gonna mention it, but they would get their own witch doctors, they will call them, which will actually cure and heal them, which a lot of the things that we're going to learn from the Back to the Eden book. And when I get this herb book, I got one, and the other one's cheaper than the other one, but the other one's more informative, and that one's like $50 or something like that. But I'm gonna get that mug. But I'm gonna get the little one so I can get my mind back into it. Bleed you for almost any sickness. Slaves knew that some of the treatments worsened problems, and perhaps most important, they realized that their master's interest in their fitness for work was sometimes inimical to their health. In short, enslaved blacks often eschewed Western medicine because they suspected their owners of greater interest in them as capital than in their welfare. They also questioned the motivation of the regular Western practitioners, who in turn ridicule the spiritual component of African medicine as superstition. Then, too, slaves had their own healers and preferred medicines that were less harsh and often more efficacious. Slave medicine, unlike the physiology based almost mechanical ministrations of whites, incorporated African healing philosophies and techniques, including strong psychological, social, and spiritual components. Slaves themselves illustrated this by the parallels they drew between their medical treatment and that given the livestock. Former slave Richard Toller remembers that owners were as practical with slaves as with the stock. Oh, particular. Hell no, they spelled it P-A apostrophe Taculah. Particular. That was their money. And if we claim being sick, they give us a dose of uh, castor oil and turpentine. That was the principal medicine color folks had to take. And if we was real sick, they had the doctor for us. I hate that they make them talk like that. And when it's written, I hate that it's written that way. Like you don't know what the fuck he said. So okay, appeals to God. Okay, hold on. I gotta get my head back right. Appeals to God, the importance of moral fitness, enlisting the help of departed spirits, especially of ancestors, were all key to African-based healing process. Ancestors who were angered by disrespect or neglect could cause illness, alienation, and other troubles for the living. This is one reason the respectful ritual treatment of the dead was so important to the slaves, and why they um, re- reviled Western medicine when they discovered that physicians appropriated the bodies of the dead slaves for display and dissection. Western medicine was thought ineffective against spirit caused illness, and slaves often lacked confidence in Western doctors' ability to cure them. If a doctor didn't believe that one could be cursed or conjured, how could he remove the threat? This is a wide generalization because some slaves mistrusted um, African practitioners who sometimes use their skills to harm as well as to heal. Yes, ancestors. Okay. But in planters, farm books, and medical journals, physicians and slave owners repeatedly berated the ignorance and superstition that led slaves to conceal illness and to shrink from scientific Western medicine in favor of conjure women and witch doctoring. I would take a witch doctor and a conjure woman any day. As a matter of fact, I follow a conjure man, um, but as y'all know, as I expressed previously, I kind of straddle back and forth. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's a different topic. Okay. Um, blah, 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 blah. However, whites had no monopoly on science. The African tradition involved physiology, physiological as well as spiritual approaches to healing, including an encyclopedic knowledge of herbs, roots, and other natural medicines. This detailed knowledge was continually passed down along lines of apprenticeship from wise women and male herb doctors, gifted young members of the community. And I think that's what my grandmother did with me when she gave me that book a long time ago. It was like 15 years ago when I was introduced to that book. But my whole life, like when I was a little kid, my dad would call his mother and she'll be like, all right, take some hyssop and some golden seal and some whoopty scoop with 3 drops of this and some of that, and boom, you'll be back on deck for like 5 days every morning and eat this, this, and this. You know what I'm saying? So I think it just kind of it's come to me as it was supposed to be. Um, Despite their characterization as primitive, African healers first employed citrus juice for scurvy and inoculation for smallpox and other viral illnesses. Midwives used techniques, herbs, and medicines so successfully without dangerous tools of the day, such as forceps, that many white women called them to attend birth. Some whites were impressed by the success rate of Negro doctors and doctresses consulted them. That they consulted them is what she should have said, and placed their medication recipes in a family book. And Western doctors faced brisk competition from black herb doctors. Period. Stop. It's dang. In 1855, in an 1855 journal article, Dr. R. H. Whitfield of Alabama railed against unscientific midwives. Oh my gosh, what did she say that made me think African techniques, herbs, and medicine? So this was super successful without having to use anything harsh. That's deep. And I think of the likes of like Dr. CB, Dr. Chef Aki, you know what I'm saying? How to Eat to Live, shit like that. I think of shit like that. The Back to Eden. There's a book by this one sister talking about back to your femininity and how eating and putting different herbs and all this shit together brings you back to your core essence, and it has a deep connection to your ancestry, which I thought was pretty deep, and it made me think of that when I read that last paragraph. There are no practices where in which The female practitioners are less educated, being chiefly negresses or mulattresses or foreigners without anatomical, physiological, and how do you say OBGYN knowledge. How do you say that again? I could never get that right. The ladies that help you give a baby. O word. How do you say that? How do you spell it? Okay, STER. Oh, that's why. STER. Sorry, y'all. When I'm typing, I be like, what am I typing? When I'm writing, it's like that, man. Probably because
Obstetrics.
obstetrical education. That such uneducated person should be generally successful is owing to the fact that in a great majority of cases, no scientific skill is required, and thus a lucky negress becomes the rival of the most learned obstetrician,
Obstetrics.
obstetrician or whatever. So he was hating on Miss Badu, okay? He was hating on Dr. CB's granny. My granny's granny. He was hating. He mad because she could whip up a couple of herbs, right, and get his old evil wife together in 2.0. Meanwhile, he cutting open and letting her bleed to death, and now he jealous because you know how to slice and dice somebody the right way. You see how evil they are? Even when they try to do good, they evil. Anyway, for all their complaints, physicians in the early to mid 19th century were happy to leave the business of birthing in the hands of black midwives. However, physicians wanted black healers under the scrutiny and supervision of white physicians. White doctors uh, denigrated black midwives and healers, calling them uneducated, but white physicians themselves had no academic preparation beyond a few months in a proprietary medical school or a few years of apprenticeship, which many blacks also shared. So until the mid 1800s, such claims of superior education rang hollow. Also, regular medicine embraced no consistent curriculum, but roped in a motley association of disciplines. At the bedside, healers practiced a variety of Western fads, such as hydrotherapy, which utilizes harmless but ineffectual water cures. There's water cures in here too. For many ailments in the tom- oh, excuse me. Maybe we need to get us an African book. Okay, she just told. You remember how I was bragging about the water treatments? Okay, but that 5 minute shower for energy has worked, and I've been using that all my life since I heard about it. You basically just take a shower, wash yourself up really hard and really fast. Now, don't break your skin or nothing, but just real vigorous and hot water that you can take as hot as you can take it, like real hot. But you got to get out of there in less than 5 minutes, rinsed off and everything. And I think you bath yourself with some cold water, and then you get out, and you like, woo, bitch, I'm awake. Um, let's see. Samuel Thompson, who, like black healers, advocated the use of milder herbal and vegetable remedies. The constant friction between white physicians and enslaved healers sometimes erupted into open hostility. Physicians denigrated black medical practice and imposed punishment, including execution upon black healers on the pretext of protecting the larger community from poisoning and from the evil um, evil occultist ways that the doctors had, basically, is how I'm going to read that sentence. Control the minds and actions of superstitious blacks. Black contributions to early American medicine included research. In fact, slave doctors sometimes developed medicines that were so highly prized as to garner them fame and fortune in their freedom. In 1729, Lieutenant Governor Gooch of Virginia authorized the payment of £60 as a monument an unnamed Negro man. Gooch declared that his mixture of pharmacologically active roots and bark had proved an effective syphilis remedy. It is well worth the price of a Negro's freedom, wrote Gooch, since it is now known how to cure Negroes without mercury. In 1751, a South Carolina slave doctor Caesar Caesar developed several medical innovations, including an almost foolproof snakebite antidote. The cure featured a shrub called plantain, plant, plantain and horsehound, a plant that derived its name from Egyptian priests who called it the seed of Horus. Let's write that down and talk. Now, what is that called? Shrub called Plantane and horse hound, seed of Horus. I'm telling y'all when I move. Mixed with sassafras, wood ashes, tobacco. I'll write this down. And tobacco. On February 25th of that year, the South Carolina Gazette published the recipe as a public service, and demand ran so high it was reprinted widely and published as a monograph in 1789. In 1799, it was mentioned in the text Domestic Medicine. Caesar's medical acumen earned him his freedom that's right, Caesar, from South Carolina General Assembly, which also granted him an annual pension which included a rabies treatment. The medical career of Wilcie Elf of Charleston, South Carolina, benefited rather than suffered when the white pharmacist who he was apprenticed turned out to be inca- uh, inca- incapacitated by alcoholism. Left to his own devices, Elf Elf formulated new medications, which proved so effective that his patent drugs became popular across the state. Meanwhile, Western doctors complained that overseers resorted to a standard remedy for every complaint, and an emetic followed by calomel and oil, bitch. So basically, they're gonna bleed you and pump you with chemicals, bitch, and you're gonna get this work, is what the doctor said. And if you don't make it, well, it just ain't tough enough. Natural selection. So the last paragraph of this chapter has sketched the roots of the friction between medical practitioners and African Americans. The next describes how medical experimentation heightened the aversion of Black patients for white physicians. Boom, y'all. We officially made it to chapter 2. What you gonna do? 248. Not so great. So, yo, all I got to say, right? These motherfuckers are some weirdos. Oh my God. So what do y'all think about this? I felt like I was getting into a movie off. You know what I'm saying? Oh man. Girl, that's so fucking deep. Like they just did us greasy. They ain't gonna try to chin on us when we shining on them. Cause they some hating ass weirdos. Okay, I'm gonna drop these words right quick. It ain't gonna take long at all. Oh, I really appreciate y'all for coming through, sticking through this with your girl. 2 hours and 48 minutes, girl. We go hard. We're the illest. Let's see. Right, they did, and the grandmas will pass that on. NiiiiGhT would. That's what we need right now. Our ancestors to heal us. We sure do. We sure do. Um, Mal Piggy. That's when that nigga was trying to be a fucking hater, trying to describe uh uh how us black folks having small heads was a protection, harsh blows. What kind of shit is that? And what we can't forget the drapetomania, that made up ass motherfucking illness because he said that the slaves wasn't showing enthusiasm for slavery. What kind of shit is that? Okay, herbitude, herbitude, which was another one that was made up when they were talking about it caused laziness and shit. How about depression? Because maybe you sold off their kids. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It might have something to do with that. And then this dysphagia was another made up one that we didn't even know what it meant because basically they said it was some made up shit that this weirdo Samuel Cartwright came up with because he was trying to make us some fucking science. They call it pika now. Oh yeah, where the slaves was eating clay and mud and shit. So that dysphagia at ethopika, it's now called pika today, and that's because the slaves was eating dirt and clay and all that shit because they were underfed and overworked, so they was fucking starving. This is the extra one that we found looking for that shit in Kachexa. I forgot what it was because I think I had got mad. Y'all remember what that means? Cachexia? I don't remember. I think I got mad. I think I ended up getting mad. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. When they was slack. Yeah, when they was sleepy, because it was something else with that. And then topography. Damn, I forgot that. And polyglots. What was the Bomaclot polyglots? Oh, a bilingual slave. Yeah, Pika. What was topography again, y'all? Damn, what the hell does that mean? Topography. Topography definition.
Here's the definition of
Oh,
topography.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The arrangement of the natural and artificial physical features of an area.
The physical features of an area. So it was when they said the topography of the black woman's breast. So basically, they was grouchy because how we was like boom and pow, you know what I'm saying? And they couldn't, but they ended up saying that we was a I don't know, something mass from head to toe trying to shit on us. But even though we was walking around with big booties, big dick shitting on these motherfuckers, now, 2020, these dudes is paying for penis enlargements and breast implants. And you remember Big Ange with the big lips trying to look like us, Kylie Jenner doing all kind of weird shit to get what we got? Mm-mm. Them slave masters will be rolling around in the grave. Thanks, Shonda. The distribution. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The distribution, the boom and the pow. You know what I meant. So yeah. So listen, it's 9:44. Y'all always got me staying up all late. So I'm about to roll because your girl gotta go to work. And I'm just tired. So yes, thank you so much for sticking around. It's Friday tomorrow. Oh shit. And that means it's time to get my wine on. And then getting ready for American Skin on Saturday. Uh, I'll announce the time on Saturday. It'll be early in the day when I announce it, and I'll set the alert on YouTube and post it on the gram. And I'll be at my mom Duke's house, and hopefully my little sister will join me. Um, and it was so wonderful. I appreciate you sticking with me through this, and I'll see y'all on Saturday. But in regard to the medical apartheid, we're going to come back Wednesday and Thursday, okay? Please get your book. It's only $10. You know what I'm saying? Or $11. Get the book. It's a good read. Get the Back to Eden. This was $7.84 for this one. Um, this book is my probably $10 or $11, but I got this for the holiday from my sister. So get these books so then when I refer to something, you have a reference point in your own library, okay? And then the other herb book that I'm gonna get is $11.74, okay? Um, and then let's think of some new books for Black History Month. I was thinking about reading The Coldest Winter again as a grown woman because I read it when I was 17. I read it in my early 20s. I read it in my late 20s. And I want to read it in my mid 30s because every single time I read that book, I I seen the book a different way. So I want to see how my grown woman self sees that book. So let me know what you think. Drop some suggestions, and then maybe we could do it together. So when we're doing the medical apartheid, maybe we could fill in the spaces with some entertainment because that's hard on our psyche, and we kind of got to bring ourselves back, you know, in our. I know I do. You know what I'm saying? Because after I do this, I'm gonna go for a walk. You know what I'm saying, and clear my mind. Get ready for tomorrow. Okay. So yes, y'all. Uh, my Cash App. Oh snap. Is you got to do the dollar sign. Get the bag honey Cash App. Bam. Yeah, I need to start doing that, but I don't do it for the money, but a little bit helps. Hopefully, this will be another stream of income. But I'm just glad YouTube allowed me to go live again. Andrea knows. Andrea knows. She was there that night. It kept blocking me. But anyway, y'all, we at 2:57. That's what's up. Thank you so much for getting through this. But we haven't gotten to the ill shit yet. Now I've gotten to the ill shit on my own, but I had to close her up and keep it moving because it was too real. Maybe we could support each other and walk each other through it. All right, y'all. Well, I appreciate you. Peace, love, and I'm messing up my shit. Peace, love, and hair grease and all that jazz. Share if you care. Share if you dare, especially if you a motherfucking Care Bear. I'm gonna see you on the next one. Peace. Oh shit. Next. What's that? Okay, bye y'all.